true crime, drug addiction, devastation, and redemption. The incredible, inspirational story of former elected sheriff, KYLE Overmyeer. Only here on William Steele True Crime. Welcome to William Steele True Crime. Thank you for another episode on my podcast and my True Crime channel. Please hit like and subscribe if you like what I've been doing. Listen, guys, since I got out of prison, I try to keep a very inspirational channel. I try to keep it clean. We try to refrain from profanity here. Just overall good vibes. We don't like to gossip about people or things. We like to talk about what you're doing with your life. Positive. We have celebrities. We have guys who have got come out of prison. We have producers. We have actors. Some pretty famous people have been here on the show. So attorneys, and since I got out of prison, I did 18 years for nonviolent crime. I've met some phenomenal people, and I write true crime books now, as you guys know. One about Ghislaine Maxwell, one about Robert Durst, and I'm working on two more. So this show that I was offered by A&E for my fans, that the Inmate to Roommate blew up to be about the second most popular reality show on television, and it's just like number 2 for a time on the Jersey Shore Vacation. So I was pretty astounded at that, and it's really helped my platform because I was going to be doing this and helping people anyway, but it's really given me way bigger audience base and millions of fans, and I'm very grateful for every one of you guys. Please, if you follow me over here, because of that show, like and subscribe because I'm trying to build these channels up, and that really means a lot to me. So for the questions about a season 2, well, if it has 11.1 million views right now on TikTok alone, Inmate to Roommate, I mean, read between the lines. I can't officially say, but stay tuned for all that. So God bless A&E, Sharp Entertainment. Shout out to Joe Ruizer. Now, standing by here, peaceably waiting for his introduction, is KYLE Overmyeer. Now, KYLE is a gentleman who used to be a sheriff of a county out in Ohio, and this man was elected sheriff. He wasn't just somebody who got the job and wanted to write some trick tickets. He was really trying to do the law and order thing and be a decent guy and help people and all that. And his life was sidetracked in a horrible way. Now, we all know the problem with this fentanyl and painkillers and this and that. And I don't believe he got involved with the whole fentanyl thing, but he got addicted to painkillers after an injury and got in a whole bunch of trouble for it because it happened while he was sheriff. And so with that being said, you're going to hear one of the most inspirational stories I've ever had on this show. And I'm very grateful that in just a really odd way, I met a friend of his while I was at the TV studio here a few weeks ago. And they heard about me and my show, and they said, "Oh, you got to have our friend on." And so they really were talking well about you. So with that being said, former sheriff, an inspirational figure, let me introduce KYLE Overmyeer. KYLE, thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you, William. It is an honor and a pleasure to be on this show and to be able to share my story on such a platform as yours. That, like you said, you're doing some great things. Actually watched Inmate to Roommate last night with my wife, and guess what? It was a great date night because of it. Thank you very much, by the way.
Did you watch it? Tell me. Thank you for that.
We love it. We love it. We want more. We want more. All right.
All right. I laugh thinking about it because I can look at my own episodes on the show, and I can't believe how funny I came across. I didn't look at myself as being that funny, but I had to, with parole and everything, I kind of had to bite my tongue, and I was trying to really be appreciative of what they did for me initially by allowing me to stay at their house. I had a falling out with family over money and inheritance, so I didn't go to family. So I ended up staying with pen pals, and he saw the craziness that came out of this. So it was like New York City meets the cornfields of the Midwest. And so that whole experience. Thank you for watching. What was your favorite scene? Do you remember?
Well, I do. My wife and I love the list that you had referring back to. Like you were a juvenile, like some kid, and I can relate with the pepperonis.
Where you got the list? Let me see the list. So I'm going to show you something right here. Yeah, there was a list for the people who know. I can't give away too much because it's going to be I think airing for like 2039 sometime. But anyway, they put out trailers, so I'm not giving away anything. The list he's talking about is right here. And this list was on my wall on my first day out of prison. The people I was staying with expected me to buy all these. and so there was actually a post-it notes I call addendums attached to that thing in the
Right.
show. But yeah, so there was like no internet, no R-rated movies, no house guests, no this, no that, and there was ones that weren't on there, like the no meat and the no ice. But so that was quite the experience. So everybody who hasn't seen it, please check out the show. Anybody who is a friend of Kyle's, please hit like and subscribe on this channel. And I'm trying to build this audience up. We're now involved with celebrity boxing to some degree. I just did a promo for them for some event they're going to have, Brawl for It All in Providence, Rhode Island. But anyway, so we'll see where that goes, and if I have any further involvement, I think I'm going to. But yeah, since the show, I've actually been offered some movie roles and all that, so that's pretty cool. Met some very interesting people. Okay, Kyle, tell us about yourself. I can't even believe I'm talking to a guy who used to be sheriff after spending. Now, I interviewed an ATF agent all the time. He's retired from ATF. He's one of the guys that used to know about me and chase me around in Miami back in the day. Now he's a prolific author. Ignacio Esteban writes books, and he's phenomenal, great guest. So you're like my second guy who had a background in law enforcement. Unfortunately, you got out of it the bad way. What happened?
Oh, well, here's kind of like my 2-minute, elevator story in a nutshell. I'm from Northwest Ohio, Fremont, Ohio, Sandusky County. And I was in law enforcement for over 20 years. I did every job from, corrections, road patrol, detective bureau. I was a narcotics detective. I even worked undercover with DEA by large quantities of cocaine too. The end before I became sheriff, and I had the opportunity. And at a young age, at 34, I was the youngest sheriff in the state of Ohio, and became the elected sheriff at a young age. And unfortunately, during that time, I had some medical issues from my past childhood injuries, and I was diagnosed with arthritis. So, of course, what they gave me? They gave me opiates, the painkiller.
Right.
And they gave me about 105 a month. And during that time, I went through some trauma, some incidents that I didn't take care of myself, but therapy. So I became addicted. And I started doctor shopping, stealing pills from the take back box, which they would dispose of the pills at the different police departments. And I was actually getting ready for my third term for reelection. And I was at the Sandusky County Fair. I in the morning of August 2016, doing the reading. And by that time, that night at 6:30, I was in an orange jumpsuit, 43 count indictment, looking at 15 years in prison.
You broke up a little bit. What were you doing at the fair that day?
I was doing the ribbon cutting with all the judges, county commissioners. And by that time, at that night at 6:30 at night, I had a 43 count indictment looking at 15 years in prison for all the doctor shopping, stealing pills from the take back box. During that time, I was up for reelection, and so I bonded out. And crazy enough, I kept running for sheriff on indictment. And I kept marching in parades. My ego got the best of me, but they wanted me bad enough, and they ended up buying I bought my son a crossbow, and it was a dangerous weapon.
They did a what?
I ended up my bond was violated because I bought a crossbow for my son for his birthday, and then that was about over with. There was no way for me to get out of jail, so I came to terms with my addiction, and I started talking about it. Pled guilty to 12 counts, and they gave me 4 years in prison.
Wow. When were you released from prison?
April 6th of 2020.
21?
2020.
2020. You break up just a little bit every now and then. So let me get this clear. You're the sheriff. You're a narcotics investigator. You know just about every nature of every type of sting and how the informant situation works and how treacherous everything is. How on earth do they catch you, the sheriff, when you're really hip to the game? Did they have to bring an outside agency to make the case against you?
They did. They brought BCI, Bureau of Criminal Identification Investigation, the General Office.
You broke up really bad again. Say that.
Okay. The Attorney General's office from the state of Ohio came and investigated me.
Okay. And so you didn't get like a courtesy tip from a friend in that agency saying, hey, whatever you're doing, tighten up. Your name's on our desk.
Now, there was some rumblings about it, and I didn't that I had any kind of issue. in regards to addiction. What happened was, prior to it, I got caught at the pharmacy, and the pharmacist told me, look, you're getting pills from too many different doctors. You got to knock it off. So it scared me to get myself clean, but it was too late, and it all caught up with me.
Do the pharmacists have an obligation to report people that are doing that? They detect that?
They have an obligation to report it to the physicians, to no longer give to the patients. And so I was treated doctors.
So then ideally the doctors would talk to each other and have you deal with one doctor, but do they then have an obligation to turn you in?
What they do is they cut you off totally. So they cut me off from all the pills. So I went cold turkey, and I got sick.
So that's when you started stealing from the take back box?
Well, no, I was doing that at the time. That's where I went totally cold, but I was doing a combination of both. So I totally got scared, William, and said, you know what, I'm done. But a few months later, it was all caught up with me.
Right. Wow, they sure waited to a very high publicity event to wait to arrest you.
They did. And, I had an opponent actually in the primary, and I got 60% of the votes, and I beat him. And then I went to the general election, and that's where it all came crumbling down.
Okay, so I would certainly imagine. I know a president of the United States can be a convicted felon, but probably not a sheriff.
No, not a sheriff. And what was crazy is, when I was sitting in jail waiting on sentencing, I was still on the ballot, and people were still actually voting for me, and I still got a outrageous number of votes. People were still supporting me.
How did your former colleagues, treat you in jail? The guards and all that?
Honestly, I not bad at all. I served when I first went to separate me. They put me in I was going to go to protective custody. Actually, 30 days in solitary confinement for my first. So I was in the hole.
Right.
I then went to protective custody for a few months, and I didn't like it because I couldn't move. It was too controlled for me. So I signed out, and the ward didn't want to sign out, but I did. And I went out to General Pop. I ran into guys actually I'd put in prison.
Oh, wow. Tell me about one or two of those things. Did they try to come after you, tell you off, or did they just say, hey, what comes around goes around? They got you now.
Yeah, it was ironic. Of course, a lot of times, you're tried when you come in. And I had one guy tried me, and luckily I have a pretty good background in boxing and fighting. So I handled the guy. So after that, they respected me. Then I honestly, I ended up breaking bread, making, cooking with guys that I put in prison. I became one of them.
Yeah. In the end, it's just a job. There's probably some of the super guys who see themselves as real hardcore that probably wouldn't associate with you. What I noticed when I did my time, those guys are all the guys that are making deals with the feds and the cops, and they have to put on a facade in front of everybody else. Anytime they're pointing finger at somebody else for being the informant or the snitch, you count on it that they're the ones doing it. So
yeah,
it's never failed.
Hey, the ones that are supposed to be solid in there,
Yeah, as always. Listen, so how was your family taking this at the time? Like, tell me about your family life at the time, if you feel comfortable with it.
No, I do.
I noticed you sent pictures of your family, and I think your dad. Was he a sheriff also? Was he?
He was a captain at the sheriff's office that I was actually elected sheriff of. So there was some real history that went on in my family.
So he must have really felt kind of hurt and humiliated a little bit. Was it the kind of tell you off and cut you off, or was it a time to just love you back into the fold? What kind of dad do you have?
No, he was just like, what, Kyle, you got to take your lumps. So, him and both. My mom was ride or die in prison. She stayed right by my side. After I got sentenced, my son was 12 at the time, and my daughter was 16. My relationship with my wife at the time was bumpy, and I had a girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, the way my everybody found out about my girlfriend, they took my jail phone calls after I got sentenced to 4 years, and they put them out in the media.
Oh, God.
And they crushed my world. And that's how everybody found out that I had a double life.
Right.
I went through a divorce while I was in prison as well, and I didn't see my kids for years.
Mm. So you divorced from the wife that you were with when you went in, and did you marry the girlfriend? Is that who you're with now?
No. No. The girlfriend cut off, and and how things go. You're locked up. Then you have a girlfriend that you connect with that reaches you when you first start, towards the end of your prison bit. And that didn't work out. So when I got released from prison, I found myself, I was homeless back in my hometown, and I was trying where all the deputies used to go in and buy chicken, the hometown chicken restaurant. And I was frying chicken for $9.50 an hour. So everybody be coming in there taking pictures of me and put media trying to break me and make fun of me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to keep doing my thing. And I beat this.
You should have wore a paper badge, said, I'm the sheriff of this chicken operation. I mean, you can't beat them, join them, As soon as they see something bothers you, they get on your worse.
Yeah. So, no, and then eventually I got enough money. I ended up getting an apartment in the hood where I used to kick doors, do a lot of drug raids. So I went back to, I kind of reverted back. And then November 22nd, 2020, ironically, after I got connected with my wife now, and 6 weeks later, we got married January 21.
Can you share how you met her?
Yeah, we met through a mutual friend that I went to high school with through Facebook. And she accepted me. She knew all about my story. She heard about while I was locked up. It had been around the area, and like people were still talking about it. And she's like, you know what? Everybody has a past. Past.
Right. Yeah, I have kind of a similar story. I did 18 years for nonviolent crimes. 4 months before I get out, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and we're locked down for like a year and a half. Guys are dying all around me. Now I've been a law clerk. I was early fighting for masks. They wanted to lock me down for inciting a riot. You're putting everybody in fear. I said, no, look around the country, look around the world. They're all dying in prison because we're too close together. And so, as you know, probably from your line of work previously, different states handle it different ways. They were letting out some guys who were charge free. And so I was held as a high escape risk from Florida to Virginia. Virginia had a Democrat governor who was letting everybody out, nonviolent charge, less than a year to go. Well, I applied for that, got fully qualified to be emergency release because I had no disciplinary charges. And I was on the offender representative committee. I was helping offenders. I was working with the administration and the offenders to resolve disputes and avoid litigation and all this. And, so I was working with the chaplain's office and the different medical departments. And so I got approved for it immediately. And then I said, however, because you're here, interstate compact from Florida, they have to sign off on it. Well, guess what? You got Ron DeSantis down there, which, people pretty much know where I stand. I'm a Trump supporter and Republican. So he unfortunately wouldn't do anything for inmates in Florida. They could die as far as DeSantis was concerned, which, officially I wouldn't ever want to see him become president because of that, because he didn't care if me or anybody else lived or died at the time. So I was like really fearful, that I wasn't going to make it out. I had a cellmate that, you know how it is if you have a bad cellmate. He's coming in with wine all day long and weed, and they get the little hour out. And he's passing cups of wine around with his friends. And he's a young dude. He's a diabetic. He's listening to this music about killing the police and hating the white man and all this nonsense. And I said, dude, we try to get along despite our differences. And I've done nothing but try to help you. But you're going to bring COVID into this freaking cell. And I'm trying to go home. I just served 18 years. I'm trying to get the hell out of here in one piece. I've only got a few months to go. You're going to bring it in the cell. And you're going to die because you have, diabetes, and I'm overweight and I'm vulnerable. And he was so belligerent, man. I couldn't talk any sense to this young dude. And I don't know how I made it out, but I was in that frame of mind where I put a book out that Nancy Grace covered on her podcast. It's called Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst, which was also featured on Inmate to Roommate in one of the episodes. But anyway, so that book came out. Nancy Grace covers it on her podcast while I'm in prison. I'm doing great. My PR guy, Tom Madden, owns Transmedia Group down in Boca Raton. He's a friend of mine. He was vice president previously of NBC TV in New York. So Tom said, hey, I got this lady. She's calling me up to represent her for an incarcerated client in California. And he's innocent, and she knows you're a law clerk and you wrote books. I told her all about you. Would you like to talk to her and see if you can give her some direction on all that? I said, sure. So 4 months before my release, he puts me in touch with her, and we start talking. She read my book. She said she read my book and fell in love with me because of advocating for other people. It was really an expose about Robert Durst and my experiences with him. And so she said, "Look, I really appreciate what you wrote, and that's really attracted me to you." Bottom line, we're still together. We're engaged, and so we'll be getting married. And that's how I met Mary. So
I
that's just,
love it. That's a beautiful story. You know what?
yeah,
Oh, and everything happens for a reason. Will and like when I was locked up, you know, as soon as I got off the bus, everybody knew what my weakness was. So I was offered drugs, of course.
of course, yeah.
And I said no. And so now today I've been clean for over 8 years.
Right.
And I stayed clean while I was in prison. And I got really into recovery. So a lot of guys were gravitating towards me because they knew it. So I was like counseling guys and working with them and helping them get clean while they were in there. So I started to understand what I was going to do with my life, and while I was in there, probably like yourself, I wanted to understand. My roommate was a gang member shooting tattoos. Yes, I got a couple tattoos while I was in prison. Brought home some souvenirs. I workout partner was a blood who was Muslim. So I read the Quran to understand the Quran and the Muslim religion. I even did Ramadan with him. I'm a Christian and believe in God. I'm a man by any means, but I want to understand why people worship different gods. So I educated myself and I started to understand and embrace people and try to understand who KYLE Overmyeyer was gonna be and who he truly was while 4 years. It's like I got another college education.
In the prison, you were in the state system, right, in Ohio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have an opportunity for any kind of rehabilitation? Did you have any opportunity for drug program, NA, AA, any classes, courses?
There was NA that I would go to every week. There was an IOP class, intensive outpatient program that I went to. It was funny, they would drug test you every week because they would give you a few days good time on it, and I was the only one that would never come up positive for drugs. That was crazy, but I did do that, and I went back to college, and I'm now gonna I have my chemical dependency counseling license as well, along with college degrees.
Right. Okay. So now, fast forward. Oh, by the way, to circle back real quick. So if you saw, I don't know if you made it through all the episodes yet of the show, but Mary, you'll see her in 2 of the episodes. I can't tell you which one, but I don't know if you made it that far yet.
We didn't, but we're going to.
Enjoy the show, man. You'll laugh. Okay. So you get out, you're working at the chicken joint. People are, poking at you a little bit, making fun of you. So what happens from there? What transitions in your life that really gets you back on your feet? You met a nice woman. You reconnect with family. How do you get back on your feet? What are you doing now to get back on your feet?
Well, of course, I was, working on my relationships with my parents, and then I had the opportunity to go work at the drug treatment place, that was nearby and worked the midnight shift, helping with some clients while they were, made a little bit more money. And I started to share my story on Facebook. And so I was starting.
Can you talk about the name? Can you shout out the name of the treatment center? Or is that private?
Yeah. I ended up starting there. I started at Recovery Institute of Ohio in Sandusky, Ohio.
Okay.
So there I was working a midnight shift. And my wife was living down here in the Columbus, Ohio area. And I was going to still commute back and forth. I got married. And 6 days later, eating pizza, my phone rang, and it was another treatment center owner who had saw my story on Facebook and offered me a job down in Columbus,
right.
A better job called Seacrest Recovery. So I'm like, God, now he
Did you say Seacrest Recovery?
Yeah, it's called Seacrest Recovery.
Is that who you're with now?
No. There's so much more that's happened.
Okay.
In 3 years. So I went from there, and less than a year later, another opportunity came along. I was working for a company that was based in Dream Life. I was a business.
You're breaking up. Slow down a little bit.
Okay.
Good.
I then ended up getting a job as a business development representative for a company out in Pennsylvania, still living in Ohio, called Dream Life. And now, and I'll tell you a little bit, I'll backtrack a little bit. And during that time, my wife and I put together a motivational speaking because I started getting people wanting me to travel, sharing my story. It's called KO, which is KYLE Over.
It's called what? You broke up. It's called what?
KO Addiction, which is KYLE Overmyeyer, and I was a childhood boxer, so it's got the boxing gloves. So I have my side business, and now I'm regional director for a company based out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's how you met my two friends because they're working over there, and we're opening up here in Ohio. It's called Hickory Hospital.
Hickory what? Yes, I have their card. What was it called again?
Hickory Behavioral Hospital, and we're going to be opening a behavioral hospital over here in Ohio, and I'm the regional director.
Wow. I'm always looking for opportunities, so keep me in mind. I'm always looking for opportunities. I've only been out just over a year, so I'm still in like getting on my feet stage and trying to, get all this stuff monetized, but also to use my background. A lot of people ask me to speak also, but I don't have a lot of things down pat just yet. We are working on that on the exact same type of thing. So I admire what you're doing. I don't have your friend's name in front of us. If you want to give those guys a shout out, they told me about you.
Adam Tussing and Chuck Bowen, they're great guys. And I even texted Adam last night and said, "Hey, I just talked to William. I'm going to do true crime with him." And he's like, "That's what's up,"
Yeah. Well, hello, guys. Thank you for the hookup. It was great meeting Kyle. And just continue your story now. So you're with Hickory. You're setting up this other behavior place out where you live. What else? What else are you doing? What else is going on?
I actually, in January, I've signed a deal with a co-author. I'm writing my first book that will come out at the end of 2023, and I'm working on that right now.
Do you have a tentative title, or you want to keep that under wraps for now?
I don't have a title. I'm still brainstorming that, William. So everybody says it'll come to me. So it's going to be a story of my life and recovery and redemption.
Guess what? I'm thinking you just broke up. Are you there? Can you hear me? You're completely frozen. The screen's frozen right here. Mary 30, 34. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, you're back.
Okay.
I'll just have to take a note that it dropped for a minute. Okay, we're back on. So you're going to look for a title for your book. It'll come to you. Now, I've got 2 books out, right? And the next 2, one is going to be my, Christian testimony, right? My faith journey, specifically a short book, really for more of the Christian or faith-based audience. The other one's going to be secular, but it's going to discuss my faith, all throughout the book, because I believe you include your God in your plans, they'll succeed. So it's important that I relay that even in my secular book. I don't have titles for these books, but here's what I thought of, and tell me what you think of this idea. Maybe you can use it. You sent me a great bio, right? It has the gloves on it, knockout your recovery, addiction. So you have your logo. What if you would post that, say, on Facebook or in all these recovery, addiction, counseling groups, all these groups you could think of, and say, hey, here's my bio. I'm writing a book that's going to incorporate this. I have, not a contest, but I like title and subtitle suggestions for my book, Life Story, based upon this right here. I was a sheriff, screwed up, did my time. I'm trying to help people, whatever else you want to put in it. And I was going to put mine out with a short bio and ask people for suggestions on a title and say that I would give them an acknowledgement or something in the book, if there's the title as suggested by my fan, the brilliant, thoughtful such and such, and give them a mention in the book for coming up with a good title.
I love that idea, Will. And it's cost money to have a co-author and that. So it's interesting. I just had an individual who reached out and donated money to my book. So I'm going to list them as a thank you in my book, and I'm going to start doing sponsorships too in my book. And I think that's another way, or let them put a quote in your book at the end of the book.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to try to at least, earn an honest living from, like, for example, my past, I was a jewel and art thief, pretty prolific, trafficking cocaine kilos from South Florida to New York, guns from South Florida to New York. And thank God I only got caught really for the burglary. Then I escaped from prison and I was on America's Most Wanted. So I don't know if you know all that about me, But so I really have this crazy story, and really it's only by God's grace that I got through it. I spent 4 years in Supermax. You know how it is. You were sheriff. If they take a high risk guy to a hospital for a routine procedure, an endoscopy, it's maybe two officers, maybe three. They're taking maybe two inmates there, and there's a holding cell at the hospital, right? In my case, they generally would take me alone because I was capable of opening just about anything.
Yeah.
They would, of course, the black box, right? The waist chain, the leg irons. And then when I was in Supermax, they would put that electric belt on me with the remote control, the 100,000 volts, I guess, to your spine if you act up. And that's very intimidating because where I was, especially in a certain part of Virginia, which I'm not going to say this about all officers, a lot of good ones, but in the western part of that state, there's a lot of real abusive inmates. And I was terrified having that belt on me because, I'm from New York, and those guys talk like this. Boy, what are you here for, boy? Spitting that stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, sir, I'm a New Yorker, sir. I'm good. I don't want no problem from you. They hate. Some of them hated everybody equally, type of guys. But it was pretty intimidating to go to the hospital like that. And in my case, I would have about 6 officers escort me. And so I went for endoscopy a second time, and the doctor said before they put me under, he said, they bring people here all the time. Why do you have 6 escorts and all this extra stuff on? And the sergeant that was with this trip said, oh, yeah, he killed his last doctor. And I said, don't tell him that. He's about to put me under. What are you, crazy? And I told him, what I was there for, nonviolent charges, blah, blah, blah. I said, but because I escaped, all of a sudden they think I'm Houdini,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So abundance of caution, But so the Supermax, not to glorify my past, that was a horrible experience. I'm watching people get shot with the rubber bullets in the day room, the gang members fighting, and then they had the rubber bullets with a lot of little pellets in it. I guess it shoots out whatever, and it's like deafening when it goes off. And they're shooting guys for having fights. They're just boom, 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 boom. And then they have these gigantic attack dogs that are barely trained, and a lot of the gang members would jump on each other, like about once a week in these places. But yeah, it was pretty horrible, man. So I just look at it like this, all the loss, my family, just everything that I've lost. And I know you feel the same, being humbled by the experience and like humiliated, like it kind of broke you maybe a little bit of the arrogance. And you're like, shit, man, I really screwed up royally and very publicly, and you can't hide it anymore. I might as well turn it around and do something good with it now, So I can definitely relate to what you've been doing. You're looks like about 2 years ahead of me on your journey. So any tips you can give me, man, I'm all open. We can collaborate. I do have 2 other quick questions for you that I really just jotted down earlier.
Absolutely.
Because we both I went through the whole cocaine addiction thing. I didn't smoke weed. I don't even drink. But I got a friend of mine died in a car crash years ago in New York. And I tried cocaine and I got really hooked on it bad. Even while I was trafficking coke, I wouldn't be high. But because I'd have, 10, 20 kilos in the trunk, and you could take a little bit out of each one, I have a few ounces to play with, and I'd go on a binge after a trip, or, I'd buy a lot of coke too. And those binges sometimes, as you know, from being narcotics, can go on for days. And, you don't trust anybody. If I was in a hotel, I'd always get like second or third floor up, never ground floor. People can't see it. They can't smell it if they walk by, so all these little things. And if anybody was with me, I was the guy like, hey, you got to give up all your phones. And I put them in a locked briefcase, and nobody could have their phone while they hung out with me. And if one person left the room, this is how paranoid you get on this crap. If one person left the room, I would then disappear and go get another room somewhere else, not tell anybody where I was. I didn't even trust if somebody left the room because I was that scared, of getting locked up. I was usually a fugitive or something. At any given time, I was wanted, bond jumping, on escape from prison. So I was so paranoid. I tried to control my whole environment. What a miserable way to live, man. So my question is this then, like, you're at this time, you probably still have your pain from your sports injuries, your arthritis and all this. Now, I don't know what you can take for it. I know in prison, it's like taking aspirin or taking Tylenol, and
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you, go back to your housing unit. So now that you're out, one, you don't have to share your medical situation. How do you cope with the pain? One. Two, when you feel lonely or vulnerable or like something's not going your way, or maybe your wife or your family won't find out, you really feel like relapsing, right? You're like, man, I really feel like getting high. Nobody's going to know. I know better this time, because these are the games we play with ourselves. How do you deal with yourself in those moments? I know they come because they come for me, and they used to, not many more, but they used to come really heavy in the beginning.
And that's interesting you say that those demons never go away, William.
Yeah.
They knock on my door, but I don't answer. And when I struggle, I get down on my knees and pray. That's what I do now. Because if I didn't have God in my life, I wouldn't be. He gave you a second chance, but he ain't gonna give you a third chance. So I gotta deal with it in that way, and I gotta ask him for his help. I might be a grown man, but I still got a lot of growing to do.
Right. Yeah, I think what people who don't struggle with addiction don't realize is that it's actually quite enjoyable, but it's horrendously destructive. And so we have to the point where we realize, wow, enough is enough. I'm just enjoying this, but where am I? I'm in a hotel room somewhere. I'm embarrassed to let my family know what's going on, and they can cave in my door at any second and, take me away. God knows what I have in there with me. I might have guns, I might have dope, whatever, stolen jewelry or whatever. But that's what I do. I rely on my faith a lot. And, I don't think it's ever going to be taken from us, because that's the nature of temptation, the thorn in the flesh. But I think it gets less and less over time. Like people say, do you want to attend AA or NA or Celebration Recovery and all that? And I'm like, first of all, I didn't drink. Second of all, though I have a lot of respect for these secular programs, you got to say, hey, I'm Bill, I'm an addict. Well, I don't look at myself as an addict. I'm no longer that. I'm a child of God, saved by grace, and I'm a new creation. So, yes, I'm subject to temptation, but I do the same thing. I pray, and I'll talk to my girl, but I never have said to her, I am really tempted to relapse. I've said to her stuff like, I can't believe I haven't screwed this up yet. I'm just astounded that it's going so smooth, So that's when you have to be more on point, I think, So you have anything else you want to add before I get to my really key question here?
Yeah, no, and something I was thinking of, if you want to collaborate and speak together, hey, I think it would be an interesting duel between the two of us. And I heard you said on the Inmate to Roommate, you're 5'5" on a good day. I'm 5'7" on a great day.
Okay, it might be a good pair, the cop and the criminal, talking to people about drug abuse and crime and punishment in prison.
I think that'd be a 1-2 punch.
That actually, we need to brainstorm a little more on that, and then you could come on once in a while on these shows, maybe guest host once in a while. Oh, by the way, my current guest host is Samantha Markle.
I'm familiar.
Elephant in the room. Her sister is Meghan Markle, married to Prince Harry.
Right.
So, yeah, since she came on board, she's done a few shows, a few interviews. She didn't feel well in the last few days, but she'll be back on here real shortly again. So we can have you on again. You can meet her and all that. So if you have anybody else you want to shout out to or promote, now's your time. Let's hear about it.
I'd like to, the shout out to my KO addiction. Anybody needs anything, they can reach out to me. I always put my real phone number out there too. It's a 419-455-0793.
You gotta say that again. You broke up right in the middle of it.
I always put my phone number out there if anybody or wants to work together or collaborate. My number is 419-455-0793. And I want to give a shout out to my wife, my kids, my parents. They're the ones that never gave up on me.
All right. Well, shout out to them too. Much love and respect for everything you're doing, and to Jesus is my Lord and Savior and God, man. If it wasn't for him, I would be a complete wreck at this point. So the links for everything Kyle's doing is going to be in the description. We're going to have his number put up on the screen because he's comfortable giving it out. If you want to collaborate with him or with me on anything, projects, helping people, advertising, sponsoring, we are all in. I'm new to this. He's a little bit ahead of me, but I do have millions and millions of fans and viewers, and I'm very, very grateful for this. I ask everybody, please hit like and subscribe. If you're one of my fans, if you're new here, hit the like and subscribe because it means a lot. With YouTube and all these other channels, I'm on Rumble, Instagram, look me up there and subscribe, follow, whatever it's called. I have 11.1 million followers on the TV show Inmate to Roommate hashtag on TikTok, and I'm new on TikTok myself, but I didn't know that. A fan told me that. So this is really blowing up fast, and I'm so grateful to God. I'm grateful to my fans, people like you who believe in me to come on there and laugh at my silliness on the show, me just being myself. Again, shout out to Joe Ruzer, my producer. He got nominated for an Emmy Award for another show, and he wanted to stick with me. He said, no, man, he said, you're funny, man. You're really good, and I'm staying on the show. So thank you, Joe, for that. Let me be myself on Inmate to Roommate. So I have a question for you, right? Now this kind of puts everything like for guys like us in a nutshell, right? I'm going to read it kind of how I wrote it. Um, well, first thing, okay, how would you like to be remembered after you're gone? Not only by your community, but by your family. What do you want people to say about Kyle? God forbid, the Lord takes you home today. How would you like to be remembered?
It's interesting. Those are one of the things about the most, William. Especially with my children, I want to leave a legacy, not a liability.
Mm.
I want them not to remember being as the fallen sheriff. I want them to remember me as the man that rose again. Not I can't be compared to Jesus Christ, but I rose again after all the tough times, and I didn't let anything hold me down. I turned my mess into a message, and I was looked at as a good man, not as a rich, but a wealthy, fully in a whole combination of one.
You broke up a little bit. You said not as a rich man, but say that again.
A wealthy man, and there's a difference wealthy and rich. You have God, family, and your health all in one.
Right. Yeah, that's a great legacy to leave them. It's not really the mistakes we make; it's how you dust yourself off and move forward. And then I think the other part is reaching back to help others. I mean, that comes full circle, and that they should be proud of you for sure. So thank you for sharing that, Kyle. It was great having you on the show. If you have anything else you want to add, just say it now. Again, his links are in the description. Hit like and subscribe. Thank you for checking out William Steele True Crime. Go to official William Steele on Instagram and Rumble and everywhere else, and please follow me. A lot more content's coming up. We're going to be doing about 5 days a week, including like a call-in type show, super chat, starting soon on Fridays, most likely. And thank you for joining. Shout out to Sean Atwood. He's one of the guys I follow in London. He's really big doing this. He did time. He got out, turned his life around. So shout out to Sean and some of the other guys that are helping to mentor me through this process of understanding how YouTube works and these shows and everything, because I don't quit, period. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm going to learn this and learn to do it well one way or the other. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Good night.